Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp of the Limp, and I'm here with some Fields of Fire. Very excited to have it here at my table. First off, let me apologize. I know it's a little darker than I normally have my videos. One of the problems is these cards are very nice. It's good for you guys that they're very well made. That's good material on these cards. But as you can see, they're very shiny. And because of that, I have to cut down some of my overhead lighting, but we still have enough light to see what's going on. So we're not going to let that affect us. Now, what I want to show you guys is the intro, right? We're going to get into this learn to play thing because this is new. This is all that work they put into it. And there's a couple parts to this stuff. So the basic company training, how to play the game, and all this. And they instruct you not to read the whole rule book, to read a portion of the rule book. So this is the first couple of sections of the rule book. And then you play through this book that I just showed you. Then you read a couple more sections, and then you play the next part, a couple more sections, next part. And you're going to do that throughout all of it. When the first games came out, first Fields of Fire, which, yes, I absolutely loved them. One of the biggest problems to that game was just the barrier to entry was quite high, and they have really done a good job here trying to alleviate that. The game is still deep, it's still complex, there's still a lot of things going on, and like I said, this is one of the absolute best games that I've ever seen when it comes to translating the orders from on high down through the chain of command, through the different units, through the different commanders, out into the field itself. Actually keeping track of your lines of communication, lines of sight for radio, for a wire. And it's kind of funny. I mean, my background is radio, so I understand all of this. And I'm thinking to myself, even back then they could communicate farther than that. They could get over a hill. But I understand why, for game purposes, they've done the things that they've done. Now, by later on videos, we're going to get into just the game proper, showing it. But I wanted to do at least a video showing how they've got this learn to play basically set up. So I've got their example in the rulebook, and I'll show you here. Well, it's not the rulebook, but in our learn to play. So you see it tells you all the cards, the exact cards that you're going to have, and most of the time you're going to know what the terrain is. There are some times where it's going to be unknown, and you'll flip it as you go. Exactly what units, right? It lists down all the units, what parts of the player age you're going to need, and it gives you just the run of the mill, like the sequence of play, boom, 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 boom. That way you can walk down the sequence of play as you're doing this, and you understand why you're doing each of the things and how they operate within each other. And like I said, it builds upon it, right? So you learn this, and then you add a little more. You learn that, and then you add a little bit more. So by the time you get done with it, you've got a good grasp of the game, and you've been eased into it rather than just slam down and hope you get it right. Now, I'm doing this specifically without reading the rulebook. I have read up to the portion of this, right, of what we're showing here. And I did that because I want you guys to see from my perspective, as I'm experiencing it firsthand, does this work? Does this learn to play that they've created work effectively? Now, to be fair, I do have background with the game. I have played it, but on the bright side for them, I do have a brain injury, so my memory's shit. So it's effectively a brand new game for me anyway. For our little course here, just as an FYI, on the back of the rule book, it does have the entire sequence of play, and you can see there's a lot, but you're not going to do everything in every single turn of the game. And some of this stuff, while it's listed out, it does seem kind of complex. It kind of is, but it's really not that big a deal. It's basically some of the stuff like friendly command phase. You're just drawing a card and getting orders for your different commanders. You know, it's not as in-depth as it looks. So for our example of play, we simply have first platoon HQ. We have the 3 squads for first platoon, and then we've got some machine guns, mortar, fire observer, and first anti-tank. So that's all the units that we have to worry about. Battalion is not even here, they're off map, and company HQ is off map as well. So for us, we're only going to worry about the first platoon HQ. For our example here, the company HQ is assumed to always be in communication with the first platoon HQ in this exercise. So normally when you're playing the game, so our staging area, which is the face down cards here, it's not the play area. The play area is the cards that we have up here. for this, they're always considered to be in command. For just this example play, normally you would have telephones with phone lines or radios to establish communications back to your staging area. All right, so for us, where we're starting off, we are going to have our platoon, our first platoon, the commands available. That does get set to its commands available side. There is a backside to this where you are completed. So you have two sides that to keep track of. FYI, I have clipped my counters. You do need to clip these counters. They're nice, thick counters, but you got to clip them. It's one of the drawbacks to it. It's not that big of a deal because I've got the Oregon laminate. That thing works beautifully. Now, for us, we are drawing for our impulse here to get its command points to be able to spend. If it was not directly being activated, it would do this in the initiative segment, but it is being directly activated, so we would draw our card. Now remember, for us, there is a huge deck of action cards that we're going to draw from, and these are used for everything in the game. Doesn't matter what it is, you're going to draw from this, and these cards will tell you what's going on. For this segment, we have got card number 30. Now, this is telling me exactly what card to draw, so I've gone ahead and pulled these out ahead of time. We are paying attention to this part up here. Everything else here is used for something, like firing is used over here, what the head effect is, certain events or random things happening will be represented over here, like if you're rallying. I forget what that symbol means, but it doesn't matter for our example purposes. And then we have a random number generator down here at the bottom. And the random number generator is kind of like dice is the best way to think about it. But it gives you the possibility to draw for any of 12 different numbers. Well, technically 11 because we don't have one, but 12 different possibilities. So let's say you need to evaluate for 6 different outcomes. If you had 6 different outcomes, you would look at the 6th column and it would tell you outcome number 4 happens. It's really just that simple. If it's 10 different things, you look under 10. If it's 3, look under 2. Really just that simple. All right, so for our example, since we have the 3 card, we look in the helmet. The helmet is for the directly activated. Remember, initiative is going to be that smaller number underneath it, which is a 2. We're not going to need that. 3 is our number. So we take and put our first platoon HQ command markers at the number 3, and that is how many commands we are going to have available for this turn. Now, something I really like that they do here is they explain why, what, and how of what's going on. For us, for our example of play, first platoon commander, the HQ, gives orders and they have to be able to communicate with the people that they are giving orders to. For our example, since we have no radios or telephones, they can only communicate directly with visual and verbal communications. That means that the units that they command have to be on the card that they're with. And it explains that here, and it tells us you can find this explained further in the rulebook 4.3.1. So everything that's going on, it says, hey, this is what's going on, and this is where you can find out why. For our example here, we are going to spend 3 commands, 1, 2, 3, to order our 3 squads to move up, left, center, and right. Now, what we are doing is referenced in 4.2.A or 4.2.2.A. And I know, again, this sounds complex, but it's really not when you start getting into it. So it's our available commands, movement actions. That's what we're doing. We're moving to an adjacent card. It's automatic, blah, blah, blah. And then it explains what happens here. So when you move to an adjacent card, you're going to mark your unit as exposed. And there are certain conditions where you wouldn't mark them as exposed. In the full game, this is why you would send like skirmishers. So you might break first platoon, the first squad up and send 1 step rather than all the steps, but we're not doing that for our example. So you do have to have exposed markers ready to go. You simply place that on the card, boom, 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 to represent that. And we will take first platoon, first squad, second squad, first platoon, and third squad, first platoon. And they are all moving up and they are exposed when they get here. This marker does go away later as you're playing the game. Now, since that was boom, 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 1, 2, 3, they are considered done. So we would flip this over. they have activated all their activations, they're complete, so they're marked as done. All right, so here we get into the initiative segment of the game. And remember, the initiative is when they're not being directly activated, and you start from on high and work your way down. For us, we don't have the company HQ or battalion or anything like that to worry about, so they are off map for this mission. No need to draw an initiative card for them. First platoon's the only one on board. They were activated, so they don't get the initiative. Any company staff that would be involved, they would get an initiative draw. And then there is a general initiative draw. That is just some basic orders that you get to toss out. These commands can be spent on any units in the company to take actions without the need of orders from HQs or staff. So it tells us what card to draw to get that number. Just like we drew card number 30 previously. Oh, these cards are so shiny. I mean, they're pretty, they're nice cards, but God, they're shiny. Just like we drew it before. Oh, and FYI, if you're looking for the number, it's that tiny little number right there. So this is card number 25. The previous one was 30. Again, we got a 3 and a 2, but now we are not looking at the 3, we are looking at the 2. That is our general initiative orders that we are allowed to spend. There is a special rule in the game that when you are doing general initiative and you only have a single platoon to worry about, then those general initiative orders are going to be halved, rounded down. So instead of the actual 2, we're only going to get a single 1 instead. Now for us, we're going to use that single general order to move up our first anti-tank. They're going to go to this left front open field. And there's a couple ways you can do this. They're going to be marked as exposed as well. If you want, you can mark them separately with their own exposed marker, or you can put both under the same marker. It's whatever you really want to do. Just make sure you keep track of the fact that they are both exposed. So for me, I would just leave it like that to signify that that is affecting both of them. Save me as a counter to put on the board. This is something else they do that I like. Now, I'm not going to go through every single little piece of this, but what I like is down here, they go through the whole sequence of play. So they're not ignoring pieces of it. They're telling you there's something that's done here at this sequence of play, this part of the game. Enemy activity phase. There's no enemy on this mission, so we don't have to do it. Mutual capture and retreat, our recruits, blah, blah, blah. So as you're going down this, it's keeping track of the sequence of play. That way, you know, hey, we're not doing that right now in this little learn to play, but this is what would happen in the main game. That way you don't learn it wrong. You know, there are these other phases and they're going to be added in these later segments as you learn the game. So we keep going down through those different phases. Nothing else happens. We do get to the cleanup phase. And in the cleanup phase, these exposed markers are going to be removed. And there is a game turn marker, which you will keep track of. So we would move this to game turn 2 to keep track that we're going into our next turn. So it continues on and it goes into turn 2, explaining again how we can skip some of the higher HQ phases because we don't have the company HQ or battalion on the map right now. For the company HQ, it activates off map and we will draw a command card for our first platoon that is here on the table. And for first platoon, they're going to get card number 24. And again, remember, we're not worried about all this. We're just worried about this top left bit for now. Top left gives us 4 because this is a direct activation. It's not initiative. So you see the direct activation, you're always going to get more of those command points, which are really crucial in game. So this will allow us to place our command marker for 4 so we can give out 4 commands to our units that are on the map right now. So since we have 4 commands to give out, now we're going to start moving some of these units that are still here in the rear. Let's move these over to the side. We're going to order our machine guns to move forward into this field. Now here, you definitely want to keep it separate because they are exposed, whereas they are not. So we do have to keep track of which ones are exposed here. We'll order our mortars to move forward as well. And then we will order our commander to move forward as well because he needs to stay with his troops. Now that's 3 commands of the 4 that we have. We still have 1 more remaining. So let's go ahead and order our 2-1 squad right here to move forward up into this open field. and they are going to be marked as exposed as well. So we have these guys exposed, and these guys exposed. Now, that is the completion of his 4 general orders that he could give. But don't forget, there are a few other steps, but we do have the general initiative that we can draw for as well. We draw for that and we get the card number 27. That gives us a 2 again, but remember we cut that in half, so that becomes a 1. And in this case, we will use it to move forward our first platoon, first squad, and we will mark them exposed as well. Again, we would go through the remainder of the turn. It explains the phases that we're skipping, vehicle phases and enemy phases, because we don't have them on the board right now. We would get to our cleanup phase and we'd remove our exposed markers, leaving us a setup of such as we're moving our troops. Now, the remainder of this exercise is simply just continuing to move our troops on through their field exercise as they get up into the woods up here. And that's it, right? We're just learning how the orders pass down throughout the troops. So I'm not going to continue just showing you that because we've seen the basics. That's what I wanted you guys to see. But I wanted you to see that they slowly walk you through it, explain all the different sequences of play, which ones we're not worrying about just yet. This was just, hey, how do we move our units through the field? And now we go into our second one. And this is a different objective. It starts teaching you about things like volumes of fire, paralyzed litters teams, enemies, casualties, all these different things that can happen as you start adding this to it. So now we would continue with our first platoon down here in their squad. They're a bunch of squads rather. Same setup. We've got our same little fields, woods, open fields, orchards, all that good stuff. But now we've added an enemy team or a simulated enemy team and a foxhole. So how is that going to be handled? How are we going to apply fire to it? And it's going to be like that throughout the remainder of this book. It's going to just keep adding to what you've already done. So we've learned to move. Now we're learning the basics of just small arms fire. And later we'll learn about vehicles. And then later we'll learn about communication. And again, just to show you, here in our rule book here, 3rd edition, this is that first couple of sections, and it talks about beginning play, learning how to use it, using your rule book, and it's telling you like the different sections, what sections you're going to read at what point, and then start getting into those different field manual books, right? So here's the second one. As we mark forward just a little bit, it starts teaching you a lot more stuff. You see, this is a lot more complicated than what we were just doing, but you're not going to start here. You're going to build up to this. So by the time that you've gotten to this point, you understand all the stuff from the first book. So you see, this looks complicated, but it's literally just compounding on what we have already learned. Now we're including everything: radio communications, ammo tracking, experience levels, the different pyrotechnics and the like that can be used to issue orders. Because that's something I really like in this game. You can assign certain things to certain colors of smoke because you might not have radio communication with guys up here, but they can see colored smoke. So you pop smoke like, okay, that means do X or do this or incoming or whatever. So what they've really done here with these 2 books is kind of like digital games when they have their tutorials when you're first getting into a game. So think about a game like Warno, right? Warno seems very complicated, and when you sit down and you first start playing it, you're like, oh my God, I don't understand anything. Well, you got to go through those certain field exercises when you first learn in the game, and it's going to teach you the basics of how all the different units move, how they operate, what type of weapons they have, all that stuff, right? There's a bunch of those. They have kind of recreated that experience here for Fields of Fire, and I really like that. I think it makes the game so much more approachable than it was originally, and you can tell a lot of effort has actually gone into these to make it easier for people to actually jump into the game and play it. You're not going to just sit down, read through the rule book, try to slog through it without falling asleep, and then try to slog through the game. That's so much harder than doing this. Think of how much easier it is now to take your just one platoon here, learn to move them. Next, learn to fire them. Next, learn to communicate with them. Next, learn how litter teams paralyze. You get what I'm saying? You just add that little bit on top of everything that you learned before. And after a couple of days of going through this, you've got the game down pat. And it's so much easier and so much more approachable than the game had been previously. And I got to give them credit for that. This makes it much more streamlined. And it is not just that mental wall, that slog, that slap in the face when you first sit down with it. It is much more approachable than it used to be before. Now, I'm not going to go through all of those. They've done an excellent job with these books. I'm definitely not going to film them all. You guys can sit down, learn it, play it yourselves. But I will come back after I have gone through those and relearn the game myself. Because, like I said, I'm a little behind. I'm a little rusty, and we will film some actual Fields of Fire for our next video, so you guys can see the full game in action. Because this is one I have definitely been looking forward to for a long time. Fields of Fire has always held a special place in my heart. And them coming out with a deluxe edition that they have really put some effort into it. They didn't just make new components, right? They didn't just add a little extra gameplay to it. They really crafted it to try to make it a much more approachable game than it used to be. So everyone can sit down and learn and enjoy this one without just that mental beatdown that it was before. And again, I've said it time and time again, but this is the single best game that I have ever experienced that properly simulates orders being issued down through the chain of command to all the different units, and how effective it is to do it the proper way, and how badly screwed you are if you lose communications, if your troops get overstretched, if your phone lines or your radios get blown out or they get cut. Now you can't communicate with those guys in the field. Your ability to issue those orders is going to be dramatically reduced compared to if you have proper communications set up with your guys actually in the field. So yeah, I definitely recommended Fields of Fire previously, but it was more towards that higher end hardcore war gamer, the real grognard. But I think now more people could sit down and actually find this game approachable than could have previously. But anyway, you guys stay tuned. That's going to be it for me on this one. I just wanted to kind of show you all the good stuff that they've done with this field manual and learning how to play the game. I will be back very soon. Well, hopefully very soon, with some videos showing the proper game in action. All right, you guys take care. I'll catch you in the next one.